Hi guys, my name is KP Balan. As some of you guys know me as a clinical tutor, I'm also an ED registrar and also part of the fellowship program to become a general practitioner. So today what I'm going to talk about is how to become a medical doctor here in Australia. Lately, I've been getting a lot of interest and a lot of people hitting me up to know what the process is. So I thought, what better way than making a video and kind of sharing my thoughts and my experiences and also what the actual process is. During the entire process, it was quite tough for me and it was a long haul and it was very confusing. And I have no idea what I would have done if I didn't have my husband with me. So I thought, why not share my experiences through a video? I've also just recently done a presentation for a couple of medical colleges back in India. So, and I noticed that there was a lot of interest to come here. So, let's see what how I can help you guys. And if you guys have any questions, please don't hesitate to drop in a comment below or hit me up as well. I have the information at the end of this presentation, so hit me up and let me see what I can help you with. If I don't know the answer, I will get back to you. I will find out what the find out, call, make a couple of calls, and get back to you as well. All right. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about training in Australia. So before we start, we need to make one thing really clear. So Australia is an amazing place to work in, but however, there are multiple pathways that you can come. Doctors who are working or currently registered in UK, New Zealand, Ireland, Canada does have another alternate pathway that they can come through and can skip the entire exam process. All right, so we'll talk about all that in a bit. So I will be talking about the fellowship a little bit, but I will touch base more in detail regarding the fellowship programs in my next video. All right. So let's talk about how to start the entire process. So first and foremost, you must get your initial qualification, your medicine registered and verified. So first and foremost, check if your medical college is part of the World Directory of Medical Schools registry. Once if it is there, then you can register with the AMC portal where your initial qualifications are verified. All right, and you'll be given an AMC ID at the end. After that, you enroll with the EPIC, which is part of a third party ECFMG group. And once you've verified your qualifications again, you will be again stepping one step closer to sitting for the exams. After the entire process is done, you can sit for the exams, which is part one and part two. I'll get into a bit more detail in our next slide. Once the exams are done, you go into registration. So if you've done both the exams, you can straight go to provisional registration and then a year of hospital rotation and you get general registration. But if you've just done the first MCQ exam, then you will get your limited registration. Now, we'll talk about a bit more details, all right? So let's see. Here you have the different pathways. So apart from the registrations, you should also know a bit about the pathway. So standard pathway is something that is very safe, and if you've gone through and completed it, then you for sure are working towards your registration. So for standard pathway, you do the AMC MCQ Part 1 exam, and then you do your clinical exam. Overall, I took about a year 6 months for my MCQ and 4 months for my clinical, 4 to 5 months for my clinical, and after that, I secured a job within 2 months' time. So I took the standard pathway. In the standard pathway, there are two ways. If you don't want to give you a clinical exam, you can go for your work-based assessment, and I'll talk about the work-based assessment in a bit. All right. Now, if you, like I mentioned before, if you're from New Zealand, UK, Ireland, or Canada, you can come to the competent pathway. Now, this does not have an exam, and you can come here and straight and get your provisional registration and work here. All right. Then you have the specialist pathway. These are for doctors who have done a degree or a fellowship in another country, such as UK or any other country, and want to come here and get straight into the fellowship, into the into the specialized or the specialist job. Then you come to the specialist pathway. But again, we have found out that the rules keep changing, and eventually, some of my colleagues have had to go back to standard pathway and finish the AMC exams. All right. So moving on. I'm going to talk about the exams a little bit more. So you have the Part 1 MCQ exam. Those are the books that you can refer to. And of course, you have to do your recalls as well. Then you have the clinical exam, which is a Part 2 exam. You have 20 stations, out of which four are rest stations, two are pilot stations. All right. And you must pass 10 and above number of cases. So for clinical exam, recalls are also very, very important. So if you look at the flow chart, you can see that if you have completed your clinical exam and your MCQ and your clinical exam, you can go straight for your, you can secure a job and you can get your provisional registration. Now, if you do not want to give this clinical exam, then you go for your work-based assessment. Okay, so let's talk about a work-based assessment a little bit. Work-based assessment is where you get a particular hospital that is an area of need, and there's a list of hospitals that are only accredited to do the work-based assessment. It's a year-long program, and you do have to pay an initial fee to get into the program. You will be supervised, and you'll have multiple assessments throughout the year. Once the work-based assessment is done, you will straight have a general registration. All right. I'll get to the registrations in a bit. All right. So before I get to general registration, let's talk about what limited registration is. Limited registration is when you've done the MCQ part and you're able to secure a job right after that, and you have not done a clinical or a work-based assessment test either. Okay. The limited registration is only given if you secure a job in an area of need, which is usually a rural location. Okay. Now, this limited registration can only be renewed 3 times every year. And once this is run out, you either have to go for provisional or your general registration. So then by then, you must complete either the work-based assessment or your clinical exam. Okay. Then you have your provisional registration. This is a registration that is usually given after the clinical exams, and it's for 1 year, and during which you will rotate around multiple departments in the hospital. So you have the medicine, surgery, ED, and after hours usually. All right. And provisional registration is given once a provisional registration, you have satisfied the criteria, you will be given a general registration. Okay. Now, general registration. This is your ultimate goal. This is what you need. Okay. This is at the end of the 1 year of hospital rotation if you have a provisional registration, or at the end of the work-based assessment. If you have a general registration and if you have a PR, citizenship, or work visa, you can get into the training pathways for your fellowship, all right, if you want to specialize. So let's talk about specialties. Like I said before, the general registration is your ultimate goal, okay? But that is not the only goal. So as you can see, I have divided the specialties into 4 major subgroups. All right. So adult medicine, ED, and surgery are all 6-year programs where you have a basic training and then you have an advanced training. However, general practice, which is what I'm under, is only a 3-year training program. And as you can see, all of them require either a PR or a citizenship, which is one of the criteria, an eligibility criteria to get into the fellowship or the training program. All right. Apart from this surgery, you must pass a set exams to get into the training program. The general practice also has an initial assessment to get into the fellowship program. All right. So there are some eligibility criteria and there are some things that you kind of need to be well versed with and attain to get into the fellowship programs. Okay. Now I will talk about a bit more details in my next video, where I'll be talking about permanent positions where you come here, settle here, and you get your fellowships, and also the other ones where you just come here temporarily, do it 1 to 2 years, and go back home to the job that you have back home. All right. So moving on, I'm going to answer a couple of FAQs that have been thrown my way. And if you have any queries, do let me know as well. Hit me up. I have some details of how you can contact me at the end of the presentation. But these are some of the common questions that have been asked. All right. So what's the first one? Why do people fail the MCQ exams? Well, mainly people fail the MCQ exams because they follow the American guidelines or the guidelines that we follow back home and we practice. That's really not what they're looking for. They're looking for, are you well versed with the Australian ways? All right. And also you have to be familiar with the recall questions. Most of the questions that do come are recalls. Okay. Apart from that, why do people fail the clinical exams? Same thing. But however, there's a difference. In Australia recently, because of the COVID situation, they have made the exam online and they used to have face-to-face, but majority of the exams are online at the moment. So communication skills is very important, and how fluent you're in English is also very important. Then apart from that, you have to be amazing at your organization and how you present the case as well, because overall it's a 10-minute station in which 8 minutes is for your case. Okay, 2 minutes is just to read the question and to prepare yourself. Apart from that, the other reason that a lot of people fail is a lot of you guys out there who do decide to come and settle in Australia are all specialists. You guys have specialized in a particular field and you guys have forgotten your basics. So that is one of the main reasons a lot of people fail. Remember, after the clinical exams, they're basically looking, are you a good intern or a resident medical officer? All right. So that is the end goal, not a specialist. All right. Then again, being familiar with the Australian guidelines. So that is very important. Another question that I get asked very commonly is, can I come just to complete my fellowship? Absolutely. So we have this thing called short-term training and medical specialty pathway, where you just come for 1 year, 1 to 2 years. For this pathway, it's a bit more complicated. Make sure that you have a research question in mind, and also make sure you have research which colleges and which programs you want to enter, and kind of pick what is the fellowship you want. All right. Now, the question that I get asked a lot when you start out is, what is the difference between AMC and OPERA? So, AMC is an independent national board, and it is the Medical Council of Australia, where they basically focus on the education and training for doctors, while OPERA is a regulatory board which makes sure that your registrations are in order and you're satisfying the criteria. You're making sure that you are doing professional development courses and keeping up to date, and basically handles your registration overall. And opera controls not just medicine, it has 14 other disciplines under it as well. All right. Now, the other question is, what happens when I have a gap in practice? Now, a lot of women out there, especially, you guys have a family, you guys have kids, you guys are going on mat leave. I've just gone on mat leave, and you tend to have a gap in practice, especially when you're relocating completely from one country to another. Um, so this becomes an issue. So for that reason, you must do continuous professional development courses here, or you can go back home and do 1 month of rotations in your home country. Now, this becomes a bit tough if you're already in Australia, and going back home and coming back in this COVID situation is not really the easiest. Can online exams be taken in our home country? I said no here. So this is a tricky one. Recently, they have let candidates do the exams online from their home country, but this is something that keeps changing. So I would say the best situation would be to come down to Australia and do the exam online or face to face here. All right. Where else is Australian registration recognized? So if I'm an Australian registered doctor, I can work in Ireland, New Zealand, UAE, and India. So if you've done a fellowship here, you can definitely go back to India and practice. And you can also work in other countries such as Canada, Hong Kong, and Singapore, but there are certain limitations and you have to check their guidelines prior to moving or relocating. All right. Now, this is for mainly for Indian graduates who have done their MD and MS. They want to know if that specialty is counted and can be recognized by the Australian New Zealand um, board. Well, the answer is no. They don't actually recognize that. So when you get here, you have to enroll into the fellowship program, do your basic training again. I believe this is very similar to US as well. Now, is there a limit on the number of times I can sit for the AMC or the clinical exam? No, there isn't. So that's a good thing. So I would ideally suggest be very well prepared and then sit for the exam, and be focused before you take it. But there is no limit on the number of times you can sit. Last but not least, these are a couple of the links that will help you to know a bit more about the process. And if you ever want to contact me, you can contact me at this. In Facebook, I have Facebook called KP Ballin, and there's a group, KP Ballin group, where I post recalls, and Instagram page where I do put on cases, and LinkedIn account. So hope this was helpful. And if you have any further queries, don't hesitate to contact me and drop in the comment section below. Bye, guys.